My name is Carlos Morales. I will be presenting the War in the Middle East speech. War. Something that has been around since the existence of man. Countless wars, countless battles within those wars, victories, losses, depending on what side of the fence we were on. Allow us to turn back the hands of time, taking us back to the year of 2001. That was 19 years ago. A year that most Americans will never forget. Many, including myself, were only babies when the tragedy occurred. We are, of course, talking about the unfortunate incident of 9/11, the day that would ultimately resort to the United States waging war on terrorism, a war that we still fight to this day. This means that American troops have been fighting, sacrificing, and dying overseas on foreign soil to carry out the mission of the United States basically ever since I was born. Everybody who is old enough to understand what was happening remembers exactly where they were at or what they were doing when they found out about the act of terrorism. For many, it was a calling to be the first to fight and the first to defend our Constitution in order to keep our country and its people safe. I bring you all here today to speak about where the darkest things of what one man can do to another man, where it all takes place. This all takes place in war. We of course are not talking about any war, however. We're talking about the ongoing war that has plagued the Middle East with terrorism and violence. The same war that a lot of us probably have had or do have a family member that is currently or has fought in this war in order to keep us safe. Nowadays, Americans are still very separated on their terms of political views and moral values. Instead of agreeing to disagree, most Americans in America this day and age either sit on the very far left or the very far right. Very few, however, choose to be wise enough to do what we were smart enough to do then when this tragedy occurred, which is meet in the middle. I was not old enough yet to see it for myself, but the ones who were speak of how great and how truly inspiring it was to see all Americans come forth as one. At that time, it did not matter who you were voting for. It did not matter where your political views were set to. It did not matter if our moral values were aligned. All that mattered was coming together as one and coming to the conclusion of, we love this country. What are we as Americans going to do about this? Which is in fact what weighed in the heavy decision of protecting the nation we built by leaving our homes and going overseas straight into where the heart of terrorism lies. The beginning of the war was horrific to say the least. War itself is truly horrifying, but this is a war like we have never seen before. Going into a completely new environment is always what has faced us as the greatest challenge. In World War II, it was urbanized warfare where Allied troops had to push through urbanized cities in France and Germany in order to push back the Axis. In Vietnam, our troops had to fight a different style of war called jungle warfare. They had to adapt to the intense scorching heat and also the humidity, which is heavy within itself, but they were more worried about Vietnamese snipers hiding in the trees and kamikaze troops laying beneath them in the foxholes within those jungles that they were patrolling. Now we move to the current war and we come across a new type of war as well. Not just the fact that it is sandy and it takes place in the desert, but the enemy harbors new weapons of mass destruction. It is hard to say which war is worse than which. But personally, I would be more paranoid about dealing with the IEDs, or also known as improvised explosive devices made by the terrorists that are used not only against our American troops, but their own people as well. I will give a few examples that will paint the picture of all the differences in all of these wars and this one. Most know about the countless IEDs which are set in the main roads, which are to target heavy American infantry assault vehicles. Others will know about the other way, which is when they will strap an IED onto somebody who is either ready to die, or they're just mentally disabled, and they'll take advantage of them, strap the bomb to them, push them into a crowd, and that crowd could either contain civilians of that same country, or it could contain American troops, or both. On the bright sides of things, after years and years, after countless sacrifices, and after many casualties, the U.S., with the help of our allied troops, are now getting to the point of the war where we are occupying less bases every year and taking more and more U.S. troops out of the Middle East. That is up until we had what I like to call the Great Scare, because Trump ordered a drone strike which killed an Iranian general, which could have set off World War III. Thankfully, the Iranian chief said he does not wish death to America nor its people, but that he wishes death to Trump and the higher ranking military officials who were personally responsible for that drone strike, which in other words means we avoided an entire war. War is the most raw, unfiltered version of what one human can do to another. This war has lasted through 3 presidencies, but war is something that has always happened, something that has happened since the beginning of civilization, and something that will unfortunately continue to happen long after we are gone and dead. And who knows, it could honestly happen again within our lifetime, because it already has once.